I'm Bria Anopise, Associate Director of Publications at A1, a Lamaze Certified Childbirth Educator, and mom of 3. My pronouns are she, her. Today, it is my privilege to welcome 2 of our amazing A1 members who are also co-hosts of this podcast. Jamie Agunstay, Maternal Mortality Abstraction Program Coordinator, 2022 A1 Emerging Leader Program Graduate, and mom of 2, pronouns are she, her. And Kimber Stovison, labor and delivery nurse, student midwife, wife, and mother of 3, pronouns are she, her. We are so excited to welcome our 2 special guests who are also 2022 A1 Emerging Leader Program graduates for this second episode in our podcast relaunch. First, Cheniqua Morales, a perinatal patient safety nurse who has more than 10 years as a quality and safety nurse, direct clinical care nurse, and community outreach leader in New York City. And Tenesia Richards, a community outreach clinical coordinator and labor and delivery nurse, also in New York City. Today, we're focusing on Cheniqua and Tenesia's leadership experiences, advocacy, methods of centering joy, and community success to improve Black maternal health. So Jamie and Kimber, I'll now turn the podcast over to you.
Thank you so much, Bria, for the introduction and for introducing the 2 wonderful guests we have today. And thank you both, Cheniqua and Tenesia, for being here with us. Like Bria said, we were all in the 2022 Emerging Leader cohort together for A1. And I know for me that was really like a life-changing and career-changing experience for me, and mostly because it's given me the opportunity to get to know some really amazing A1 members and A1 leaders, including yourselves. And it's really been a pleasure over the last almost 2 years since I met the both of you at convention in Denver. I can't believe it's coming on 2 years already, to just watch, I think, you really flourish and grow. And so the first question that I'd like to pose to both of you, I think Cheniqua will send it to you first, though. Can you each tell us in your current role about one of the projects you're working on in your unit or in your community as a way to advocate and improve Black maternal health?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having us. It's truly a pleasure and an honor. And I really can't believe it has almost been 2 years. That is wild. A phenomenal 2 years. Let me just add that. But yeah, currently I work as a patient safety nurse. It is truly, truly my dream job. And one of the things that I'm currently working on is building a simulation program. I've been in a lot of different spaces and different roles. And what I found is when it comes to talking about Black maternal health or racism and structural racism and those types of things, it's a very uncomfortable conversation that some people are not quite ready to have, but we know we need to start having them. So in all of my experience, I just wanted to find a way to create a safe space and even a brave space to start to address a lot of concerns that we have with our Black maternal health outcomes. And so right now, currently, I'm working on a simulation program with an ends on equity. And that's where we'll be able to start infusing it with conversations around structural racism and just the outcomes of the BIPOC community. And the very cool thing that we are doing, I remember the very first time I saw a Black mannequin. I didn't know they made mannequins in brown tones. And when I did see that, I lit up. I saw a little brown baby and it just made my whole heart happy. So now I am in this incredible position to be able to select the tones of our task trainers and our mannequin equipment. So that's one of the things that I'm working on in my role right now.
That's pretty incredible because I think that sometimes the invisibility of Black bodies in some of these spaces kind of lends itself to kind of increasing that these terrible statistics that we see for the Black maternal mortality and morbidity. When you don't see people that look like the people affected in these spaces, in these mannequins, like in these med schools and these nursing schools, then it's easy to pretend like that is not a problem that is a current problem. It's a problem of the past. So I think that's pretty incredible that you have been thoughtful enough to kind of bring that aspect to your work that you've been doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Tanisha, can we turn the same question over to you?
Absolutely. And I echo what Cheniqua said. I'm just so excited to be here. Thank you, Bria, for identifying me as a labor and delivery nurse. I currently have the title of a community outreach clinical coordinator, but I am always a labor and delivery nurse at heart, no matter how far away I am from the bedside. So I'll start with my, labor and delivery experience because that's where, it brings me to where I am today. And while I was at the bedside, I started a health equity committee called Health Equity Alliance for Life, which is an OB department interdisciplinary committee, basically having uncomfortable conversations around maternal health disparities, how to have uncomfortable conversations and improve the culture to ensure that the patient has the best, most equitable and high quality care. And with that HEAL committee, it's what's the name, the acronym. We've actually expanded it where we have been bringing providers into the community to meet patients where they are. And that expansion, the program is called HEAL in the Community or Heal in the Community. And I'm so excited about that. We launched that this year. And for Black Maternal Health Week, we had our first in-person maternal health fair April 13th. So excited. It was amazing. Basically where we have brought so many providers. They were all excited to just come and just jump into the community, get their hands a little dirty, and have amazing conversations, just letting patients know how to feel empowered by having that knowledge base, knowing how to advocate for themselves, knowing what resources are in the community for them, in the Harlem community specifically. And we had a panel of OBGYNs, midwives, patient services, social work. So it's absolutely amazing to be able to bring those resources into the community because there's such a huge mistrust with the community and the realms of a institution. So we want to remove that barrier, and I'm so happy and so blessed that I'm in that position that I can do that.
Incredible work you're both doing. I did notice that both of you spoke to the fact that there is some discomfort in discussing these things. Yes. And I feel like that is really worth mentioning, how sometimes you just have to call the devil by its name, right? And I mean, even with recent news in one of the popular Facebook labor and delivery groups, with the death of that Kansas City former cheerleader, they talking about her death, which adds to the statistics that we're seeing. I believe her name was Chrissy Anderson. Even in some of the dialogue around that, it seems like people are unwilling to call out the part that racism, systemic racism and bias plays in these deaths and these statistics. So I think it's worth noting that it's pretty important that both of you are addressing that, you want these spaces to be a safe space to kind of discuss some of these statistics and some of the things that play a role into these horrible statistics that we're actually seeing. So thank you for bringing that up and including that as a large part of your work, because there's definitely, it's definitely an area that we need to improve within birth work in the US especially.
You are so right, Kimber. And I think, the first step of, Alcohol Anonymous or things like that, the first step is admitting that there is a problem. And there's so much denial in the hospital space that I'm not biased. We don't have this issue here, and discomfort in just saying the word race. And I love that my HEAL committee has basically healed the unit and changed the culture where we can say that and can be transparent and say, hey, I don't know how to have this conversation. Or, if you see something uncomfortable or something that's inappropriate, and calling somebody in. I think that's been the biggest outcome that I'm so proud of to say. And we start every meeting by basically having community agreements saying that I am uncomfortable. That's okay. I am an agent of change. I'm here to learn and grow, and I'm here to hold my colleague accountable, and we're going to affect change together. So just setting the tone that way has really made such an impact, and just being ready to have that uncomfortable conversation and not leave it in that meeting, but take that same energy and put it on the unit to make sure that the patient has a better experience.
So true. It's always surprising when someone will have a conversation with me about how Bigfoot is for sure real, but then you bring up racism and they're like, oh no, can't be a thing. So I definitely appreciate the effort to kind of create these safe spaces where we can say, okay, like this is obviously a thing. Let's just bring it out there and let's address how we can like fix this.
And I think when you have, to Tanesia's point with the committee, when you have a space or you have someone that's brave enough and unapologetic enough to have those conversations, we don't always realize how much permission we're giving to everyone else in the room by addressing the elephant in the room. Yeah, and I know once the elephant was addressed, I kind of have these conversations. We did a skills fair this week, and every day I brought it, I was teaching sessions and we brought up the conversation around race. And you could see I'm very unapologetic in this time now. And I've been a nurse for over 10 years. So it takes time. But you could see that you're giving others permission in the room. And there's like this deep breath or a sigh of relief that they take when they're like, finally someone said it, especially when they're a person of color. And it's awesome. It's awesome to be able to give permission to others to have the conversations. And so I think these conversations, even having us here, powerful, right? And it just gives permission to say, hey, there are other people in this space doing the same very important, hard work, and you're not alone in it. And I think that speaks volumes.
I agree with that. And I think that the maternal mortality statistics, especially in the New York City area, where the disparities are so stark for the outcomes for Black women and women of color, like we don't have a choice anymore. We have to tackle these uncomfortable conversations and push past the discomfort for anybody who might still be uncomfortable talking about this. And I think that nursing specifically really needs to address some of the issues, in the culture of the units, not only for the patients and the families that we're serving, but for the staff. I mean, we talk a lot about like increasing the diversity of the birth work staff, whether it's, bedside nurses or midwives or doctors, and just all of the historic injustices that have led to the numbers and the percentages of the workforce, not being people of color. I think that we really need to, we really need to look hard at the culture of the units to make them safe places for not only the patients, but for the people who work there, for the management, for the staff, to make it a welcoming environment for everybody who's going to be working there. And that actually kind of transitions me a little bit into the next question that we had for you, which was, can you describe to us, or what have your experiences been as Black women and as leaders and nurses? Can you each tell us a little bit, maybe just a little bit about your experiences? You want to take Cheniqua, you can go first.
Oh, sure. It was lonely, especially starting out as a new nurse. In New York, you have the 5 boroughs. You also have Long Island. The further away from the city you go, the less you find Black and brown people at the bedside. You find them in the hospitals working as ancillary staff. You hardly ever find them as nurses, or more so in leadership roles. It was very lonely in the beginning. And there were times where I felt something, but didn't have language for it. I felt weird, but couldn't say it. I didn't know what it was. I just knew I didn't like the feeling when I interacted with certain leadership or certain nurses. And I grew up at a time in the era where I think we still have some of this, where nurses eat their young. So not only are nurses eating their young, but now I'm a young Black nurse, so it makes it even worse, right? It's like a compounding effect, and it was awful. But I didn't give up. I think because I knew my purpose was in OB, it was to help empower women during their birthing experience. That has always been so sacred to me. And so I kept going. And I ended up meeting Tenesia. And I think Tenesia had just gotten back from an A1 conference that talked about structural racism and microaggressions. And when I heard the word microaggressions, I could breathe. I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew someone gave me language, and that for me was everything. As time went on and I started recognizing I wasn't alone in this, I tried to step into different areas of leadership. And at one point I took a position as an assistant nurse manager, and it was not in the city. And it was by far the most awful position I'd ever taken. I was one of two Black women in the house that was a nurse, that was a leader. And I was told my name was really Black. I was told a white patient was told her white male son should be named Cheniqua, because we all know Black women are stronger than white men. It was just a lot. And those are just few things, just few examples of things that were verbally said to me. And it was awful. I didn't know what to do with that. So I did nothing. I just said, I stayed professional. And then I called my dad and I cried. And then I called my friends and I cried. And I leaned into my community. And as I started to keep going in this work, because I didn't let it stop me. It slowed me down a little, but I didn't let it stop me, because I knew I wasn't alone. And that's the part where finding allies, finding Jamie, finding Tenesia, finding the Brias and the Kimbers, that's the part that kept me going. And I knew if I was going through that, I wasn't alone, but also there were moms, Black moms that were on the receiving end of this, that I had to fight for, that I had to advocate for, that I couldn't give up for. And so it motivated me and led me to my lovely simulation program to be able to address these things in a very non-threatening way, and in a very inclusive way, because I think that everybody needs to be hearing the same thing at the same time in the same way, and having the conversations in that space. And that's only one of like a few programs that I have going, but it's been beautiful because I've allowed the pain and the experiences to grow me and to help me become more of a better human, a better nurse. And so I'm appreciative for every experience, but for anyone going through that, if I have one message to say, it's you are not alone. You are absolutely not alone.
Cheniqua, that was a whole lot that you just said. Just pretty profound, like that you didn't have the words for it. And I think that also like, it kind of tells you just how important like some of the work that you guys are doing is, because now, people are getting to see women that look like you in this space that is not traditionally filled. Well, I guess traditionally it is filled with people that look like us, but more recently it's not full of people that look like us. Yet the people that are dying, the people that are suffering are the people that look like us. So I think that kind of reemphasizes like how important it is, the work that you're doing, because it kind of brings to mind that quote by Zora Neale Hurston: if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and they'll say you like it, right?
Yes.
So here we are, like other people that look like us, that's doing the work, that are giving us words for the very experiences that we're feeling. And when you're talking about your experiences, oh my gosh, like I feel like you're reading my diary out loud. Like so often you kind of feel like, I don't like what's happening, but I'm not really sure how to like put that into words. And so often I've come across other people that look like we do, who have the exact same experience working within the birth world. So, I mean, I just have to say thank you, ladies.
And I think
thank you.
Absolutely. And I think that's the part, right? Like, this is where those communities really coming into these spaces. And I also want to say, please, a lot of it happens the higher up you go in leadership and in those roles, and it's challenging, but we are not alone. And this is where breaking down those silos and coming together to have these conversations, to encourage one another, is really, really important. So you're welcome. And I'm glad that it's you're relating to it and able to identify with that, because that again is an example of how we can, it's powerful to be able to say those things.
It's resonating on a deeply personal level, for sure.
And for the record, Kimber and I have never met, so it was no opportunity to steal her journal or her diary.
She has never read my journal. That is true. However, I did meet you in New Orleans at your board. I was looking at the emerging leaders board in the back, and yeah, I did meet you there.
We did. Right. Did we take pictures? We gotta do.
We did.
As it turns out, in my defense, I did leave with COVID, so I was COVID positive. So if I don't remember, if I met anyone in Denver, I had a concussion at that event. It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it later.
I'm gonna bubble wrap you before Arizona.
Thank you, Kimber.
Tenesia, give you an opportunity to also answer that question about your experience as a Black leader and nurse.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to thank you guys for asking this question. I have never been asked this question, and it just being able to have a place to share my experience just feels so empowering. I don't know if that makes sense, but so like Cheniqua said, I think, I was recently listening to random podcasts, and the theme of them were adversity, how it is our strength. And I didn't realize that. I mean, you realize that the struggles really make you stronger, but looking at every time I grew so much more, or I truly appreciated something, it was with the adversity. And I think that has been my nursing career. It has not been easy, to be honest. Just becoming a nurse in 2009, I couldn't get a job for a year as a new grad. And even trying to become a leader and take that chance to affect real change, it was hard to get into that role because there were not people around me that would pull me up that looked like me. I had no mentors. Sad to say, I did not have a leader above me that looked like me nor mentored me ever. So I was met with adversity time and time again since leaving nursing school. I know that my color played a factor in that, because all of my white classmates from my cohort in nursing school got jobs, and we all did externships together. And with rave reviews, that makes you question yourself. So, besides me already beating myself down with my imposter syndrome, I'm getting that confirmation from the external saying that, hey, it's true, you're not enough. So that's, one part. And then trying to get into leadership, I have been so passionate about maternal mortality work, and especially in New York City, the rates being so bad, I just wanted to do more. Needed to leave the bedside to affect change. But how do you do that when there is nobody around you that's encouraging you? Not one person said, hey, I think you should go into leadership. I see potential. But I knew my potential. I had people like Cheniqua. Didn't meet Jamie at the time, but people like Jamie that would, say, hey, you got this, just stay around, stick with it, put one foot in front of the other. I promise you it's going to get better. So you truly have to lean into your team. But, finally, and even though people have continued to push me down more than they lifted me up, I through the grace of God, he kept me going, and he had a vision for me to be a leader, and nobody could stop that. So with the structural racism that plays a part, I try to put blinders on and find ways to belong. So I definitely did what I could to fit in. Never felt like I belonged. Lost myself because I'm like, hey, I have to find a way to fit into this community of nursing that doesn't look like me. I couldn't speak up too much. Had to be a little Black. Couldn't be too Black. It's just like this game that you have to play, which is exhausting. I mean, the amount of times that I say I'm exhausted and overwhelmed, but yet my work does not stop, that it just makes me even more exhausted by thinking about it. But I think with that, God has placed angels around me to pick me up every time I get pushed down, sisters to encourage me to keep going and fill up my cup, so I can continue to fight that battle every day. So just being a leader, and meeting these amazing people. I think I'm so proud to be a nurse, so proud to be a nurse leader, so proud to be an emerging leader, so proud to be in the space of doing this work. I've met such amazing people, and now I can add Bria and Kimber to my roster of people around me that continue to lift me up and fill up my cup. So I continue to say, when you are burnt out, your cup is empty. That's the time that you lean in and, pull into these people. Because Cheniqua knows me. I am very good at stepping away, shutting down. I'm an introvert. So she pulls me in, holds me accountable. Like, I'm here, utilize me. So thank you, Cheniqua. Thank you, Jamie. And thank you, Bria and Kimber, for creating the space for me.
Absolutely.
I noticed that you both made a little comment about how lonely it can be on on these units when you feel very isolated. And you did say that adversity kind of makes you grow a little bit from it. However, I think it's of note that it's also particularly exhausting, where every single interaction you have to second guess what you're doing, how you're appearing to someone, because you are the representation because there's not a diverse environment. And I just think I just wanted to point out that fact that that isolation, that constant second guessing, that constantly having to be in your best form. I mean, it really, really is exhausting. Though we might be growing from it, sometimes I just want a real soft life. I want things to be a little bit easier for us. So I think that also kind of lends itself to how important the work is, because what we're doing now is pretty much setting the path for those that come behind us. As we grow, we get to pull somebody else up with us and be that example for those people that come behind us, so they don't have to fight the exact same battles.
Right. Kimber, I just wanted to piggyback off of that, because you make an excellent point. It is extremely exhausting. And I think for me, Tanisha and I have been best friends for years now. I don't know how many, but it's been a while. And one of the things, a couple things. One, we're very opposite. We are very opposite. Our values are very aligned. We are truly, truly aligned in our values and our purpose and our goals, but our personalities and our outward, just how we are is very opposite. For a long time, I have a very loud voice. I'm an Aries. I have a big energy. And I was like, one day I prayed, I was like, God, why did you make me this way? Because sometimes it didn't fit into this box of what people said was professional or anything like that. And so that switching for me was very, very hard, because it was like, oh, mind how loud you are. Oh, mind what words you use. Oh, don't be too excited, but don't be too relaxed. It's exhausting. All of that to say, when you do find your tribe, anyone that is tired in that capacity, because I was exhausted like that for a very long time. And still we get exhausted. But when you start to find your tribe, you get to be in a space where Tanisha's great at one thing, I'm great at the other thing, and we expect each other. Jamie's great at another thing, right? All of us on this call are great at different things, and we expect each other to be great at the thing that we are great at. We don't have to be like anyone else. And as you start to find more people in that space, you begin to start embracing your own self and who you are. right? And the different ways that we were created. I think the other piece to this in terms of environment, I've worked for 10 years, over 10 years in this space. And the last time I felt like I was on cloud nine was when I had my first delivery in a birthing center back in 2008 or 2007. And going through all of these ups and downs in this career and in this profession, I cried a lot. I felt tired. I leaned into my tribe. Tenesia has called me out. So thank you, T, as has Jamie. But there was a point where Tenesia called me out and I cried. I cried because I knew she was right. Right. And so giving people permission to do that. And I can honestly say, keep going. And I've also had a lot of jobs, a lot of jobs, which was embarrassing at one point. But I just felt like I got to keep searching until I find my fit. So when we're thinking about how exhausted we are, also think about keep looking. And I'm not saying switch jobs every 6 months. That's not what I'm saying.
Or every 13 weeks, like a traveler.
Maybe that you are actually a traveler. Yes. Right, but not if you take a job. Be intentional about the jobs you're taking. Pray or reach your higher source or whatever you tap into to really understand why you're stepping into these roles. But keep going until you find your role, because I can honestly say I have found my dream role. I am on a dream team. The people I report to are the most diverse, but not only are they diverse, they are as passionate as me about this work. And I'm not as exhausted because now my personal life is also matching my professional world is matching my personal life. And we actually held a New York City, Tenesia and I are chapter leaders, A1 chapter leaders for the New York City area. And we held our first kickoff. And in that room, I had people that I worked with, people that I was in meetings with. I had my daughter in that room. I had my family in that room, friends that are very, very close that know me well. And Jamie was in that room, right? And it was the first time that I could ever remember where I didn't have to switch. I was fully and utterly and authentically my whole self. My daughter knows my crazy self. My chapter members knew my best friends knew my crazy self, and my director. The people that I'm on the team, they were in that room and they saw me in my crazy self. And when I say crazy, I just say, I love to be excited. I love to have fun, and I love to just be me. And that I have more work that I'm doing today than ever before in my life. Dear God, so many projects, right? But I'm not exhausted in my spirit. I'm actually refreshed. So I would say to that point, keep going until you find your tribe and you find the environment and the team that works for you and releases you from that exhaustion. Because it's more emotional, mental, and spiritual. And so I just wanted to add that little piece to it. Yeah. It doesn't.
Can I add something to that? I think that we're hearing a lot about the concept of resilience right now, and especially as it comes to nursing. And I don't have the experience, of being a woman of color in a nursing environment, right? But I think that what we're seeing is there is this level of expectation for nurses that in order to thrive in any environment we're put in, we need to be resilient, right? That we have to be able to take better care of ourselves, or we have to be able to speak up more, or we have to, do X, Y, and Z to become resilient. And I think that, to me, at least, that's the wrong conversation, because we need to be asking the questions like, how can we create systems and work within systems that we don't have to survive and that we don't have to be resilient for and that don't exhaust us and drain us? Because if you think about, like, I very often look at like Maslow's hierarchy, right? And where we are expected to work as nurses is at the very top of that pyramid, where we are firing on all cylinders, and we are, not only doing our bedside roles for people who are still at the bedside, but also doing additional work, whether it's committee work and volunteer work and work with our professional organization, which, really fills us up. But there's this expectation for us to be able to do all of that. And at the same time, we are working in environments where we are at the bottom. Like, we don't get enough sleep. We sometimes don't even get breaks. We don't get to go to the bathroom. We don't get to eat. You know, we are in these environments where we are constantly witnessing traumatic birth experiences, where we might be, seeing them or having to respond to them. And, I like to say, like, these things are common, but when you look at the experience of life kind of outside of nursing, these experiences are not normal, and so I know for me, I surround myself mostly with nurses because they understand kind of what it is that we go through. And as somebody who is working in maternal mortality, who is surrounded all of the time by sadness, I surround myself with all of you who can understand that. And so I think that, as a leader, one of the things I'm looking at is like getting rid of that concept of resilience and creating spaces as leaders where all of us can thrive and not have to just survive, because the nursing workforce can't sustain that. And we're seeing that. We're seeing people, flee the hospitals and flee the bedside because the environments that they are working in are just not sustainable or healthy for them. And they don't want to do it anymore. So I just wanted to add that because it just made me really think of resilience when we're, talking about that.
I think that's a really good point, Jamie. And I honestly, thinking back to when I first started working in birth work, I just want to say that I feel like it's kind of wild that, we even have to talk about being resilient within like our specific specialty. Not saying that like birth can't be dangerous or high risk, but like before you ever work in birth work, you kind of just think of birth as like this beautiful, wonderful, like transition in someone's life where they're getting to grow their family and meet their baby. And of course, you always have these like unexpected outcomes where, it turns into like a little bit more high risk situation. Not always, but you can have those outcomes. But starting to delve deeper, like as I started getting more involved, just seeing like people come on to the unit being trained and, them crying at their first birth and other nurses being like, well, they're not going to make it because that's not the kind of attitude we need. Like, it's just like, I feel like we kind of need to get back to the basics of like what we're involved in. Like, it's just kind of wild that you even have to have this conversation about the resilience when it really just should be like a warmer environment that is just more appropriate for the time of life that people are in. And I also think this kind of, I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but I feel like this kind of leads to another question that we have because, we're kind of getting into a little bit of the heavier stuff. So I really just want to ask our guests, like, how do you guys how do you balance centering joy as well as awareness when you're dealing with like the outcomes and you have such a acute understanding of like how high the stakes are? How do you keep it from getting like quite so heavy and really just center joy in your life?
Yeah, I can definitely jump in there. I think as you're talking about resilience, and I think what frustrates me the most about that is that you're putting the onus on the person that's suffering to do something about it, and that is what is occurring with Black leaders, with these Black women. It's like, hey, there's an issue. You have to fix the issue too, on top of the exhaustion from having to be the victim as well. And I think one of the most powerful words I learned or phrases I've learned was psychological safety. And we learned that in leadership, and it's creating a space where you feel safe. And that blew my mind. I was like, yes, I have not had that, but I need that because I have that with A1. I have that with my tribe. And when I do have that, I realize that I thrive. But when I'm in a space where I don't have that psychological safety, where I haven't had that in leadership, you know what, I revert to that imposter syndrome, as you were mentioning, Kimber, about like having to think about every little detail, including, you know, what do I have to wear today for this meeting to make sure that I'm taken seriously in this role. They don't realize how much a Black woman, the weight I put on myself as a Black leader to prove myself to myself, as well as proving myself to everybody else who said I couldn't do it. I put so much weight on myself, and I've become a perfectionist. I mean, I've been a perfectionist, but now it's like 20-fold. And I think, you know, I do a lot of mental health first aid work. I'm a mental health first aid trainer. And with that, I am aware of, you know, the signs and symptoms of mental health challenges. I can admit and be transparent, because that's, you know, the point of this work is to spread awareness that as a leader, I have become anxious and experience depression because of this work. And that shouldn't be the case. And this is because I don't have that psychological safety. So it's so important to find ways to balance and support yourself. But when you're so busy trying to save the lives of Black women in New York City, including myself, and prove myself, it's hard to find that balance. And I must say, I don't do a good job of it, even though I have the tools. I know a lot of tools. But when do I have the time to do that when I'm working so hard, working 20 times harder than I promise you that my white coworker did not work as hard as me. I know that for a fact. I don't have the data now, but I can say that. When do I have the time to take care of myself? You know, I try to fit it in when I can, but I'm scheduling, you know, all of the work that I have to do. Like for my HEAL committee, if I leave, I know that my committee is going to die because it's still not taken as seriously as it needs to be at. So I can't leave. I know that. Even though I'm exhausted and I want to take a break, I would love to go to a different country for a few months and then come back. But I have to make sure that it is sustainable because this work is so important. So I think, you know, there's so much that has to happen when it comes to balancing. And I think having these spaces with your tribe to hold you accountable, to support yourself, because they lift me up. And I think that's a lot of the balancing for self-care. But I love traveling because I keep mentioning that. So I do that. I try to go away as much as I can, but I come back to the same problems and the same heaviness. So it's hard, you know. How do you find that balance?
Yeah. I think to Tanesia's point, it is exceptionally challenging, I think, for several reasons. One, we're women. And we want to care for people. It's kind of part of my nature as a woman. I want things around me to grow and flourish. Two, we're nurses, and clearly that layers, right, where we just feel like we always have to show up and hold space for people, and But to Tanesia's point of transparency, for me, it's I can pin it down to about two things. One is my very deep rooted relationship with God. And I'm very unapologetic about that. I don't run around. If people ask, I'll tell them. But for me, especially through all of the years the things that we've experienced over the years with the pandemic, with all the events during the pandemic that was happening to our, to our people in our community, I had to root my faith in God. There's no way. I have to understand that I don't have control over the things outside of me. And so for me, it is prayer. I take the time all day, every day to pray. I am in the scriptures. I know what God says about me. I know what I'm supposed to do, and I know my role. And when I say I know my role, I have also, it's not just about being spiritually aware or tapping into your higher power or whatever it is that you believe in. But it's also using the tools that we have around us. And I have been in talk therapy since 2018. That has changed my entire world. I have an excellent therapist who is a woman of color, who is very spiritual and helps me work through the things that I was struggling with in my personal life, and then, how it went into my professional life. I'm also a mom. So that's, you always show up in all the roles that we play. But I think for me, it's praying and understanding, knowing how and what is my assignment, because everything is not my assignment. And also leaning into my tribe and my community to either be refilled, refueled, or called out. And I am open to that because I have, to Tanesia's point, that psychological safety with them. I think at this level of the game, with all of the things that we have in this leadership role, being in this new role, in this new facility that I'm at, well, it's not a new facility, but being in this new role, in my current role, with also being very active in A1 at the national level, at the local level, the state level, to being a mom, to wanting to go out and have fun. I think what has helped me more recently with all of these different responsibilities is being intentional about staying present.
Yes.
And knowing myself best. I know I can either lift up a room or I can take that room out. I'm very rare of my energy in a room. And so you have to know yourself and spend time with yourself to recognize the things that are triggering, recognize when you're boiling. I think only now I'm starting to realize that I get a little overstimulated in events and conferences and things. So I may need to find a little corner, regroup, say a prayer, center myself, and then step back in. So being patient with yourself, giving yourself grace, and understanding that we are a part. I'll say this. I was called to be salt and light. Salt preserves and light shines bright. And that is what I'm called to do. I understand when I step into a room, I may be in a room where I'm either sowing a seed, I'm watering a seed, or I'm reaping or harvesting a seed, right? I don't know what season people are in when I walk in the room. I just know they're in one of those seasons. And I trust that God is going to do the extra work, the work that's outside of what I am supposed to do. And so for me, it is prayer, and it's being very intentional about staying present, and refilling my cup very regularly, and doing the things. Tanesia loves travel. When she starts getting cranky, I'm like, yo, book a trip. Book a trip, sis. You need to book a trip. She's like, no. And I'm like, book the damn trip or I will book it for you and I'll send you. Like, right? For me, I like going for walks. It clears my head. I know when I start getting agitated, I need to go for a walk, or I need to go see Jamie, and play in the woods, because Jamie lives in the woods. Right? I need to be in a different environment. So I know what works for me. But that comes with taking the time and protecting the time fiercely, even if it's just 30 minutes a day, or Sundays, that is my day. Do not ask me to do anything. And we have to practice that. I will be honest. I didn't get like this overnight. I practiced it. And there's something called the pleasure principle. And once you do something, you really like it, like you start doing it more and more, and you want that like feeling again. And so by practicing self-care and learning the things that I like and that work for me, and the people that that fill my cup, those are the things that are powerful. And then also releasing the things that drain me. I'm at the point, it might be because I'm turning 40 and I'm very proud about this. But I'm at the point where if it drains me, I disconnect it. I let it go. I don't want it. Because I have so much richness in so much of my world that, like, why would I even entertain anything draining? I don't want to, so I'm not going to. But that takes practice. So I think it comes down to really choosing to center joy. That's what I would say.
I do want to say, I think you both have a really great awareness of yourselves and what your triggers are. But Cheniqua in particular, about your like sowing the seeds or planting the seeds or watering it. I do want to point out that at the New Orleans A1 National Conference, when I came up to you, you were absolutely sowing a seed in my life that I did not realize you were sowing. And Bria and Lachey and a couple other people, Jamie, they kind of watered that seed that you had planted for me with with the emerging leader program because I had looked at that 1,000 times and thought like, that is not for me. Like, I'm not ready for that. And here you are talking to me about it as I'm looking at your poster, and I tucked it in the back of my mind. And then here I have like several other conversations with a couple other people, and it just keeps coming up. And I'm like, that's funny. This is what Cheniqua mentioned to me at the conference. And I couldn't remember exactly, but I want to say that it was probably 2 days before the deadline for application. I was cleaning out my bedside table and I found your card.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like,
No way.
yeah, I was like, I was like, no, this is not a good time for me to apply. Like, I'm not going to do it. And then I found your card and I was like, okay, let me just think about it. And then I had the first meeting for the podcast.
Yes.
And then Bria was like, you should do it. Like, you should absolutely do it. And then Lachey with the editorial board, she mentioned something to it. And I'm like, all these people are saying this to me. Like, what are the chances that this would align like this? So this was a seed that you absolutely sowed in my life when I met you. So I think you have a very distinct awareness of your role in people's lives. And I can really appreciate that.
Listen, I want to say thank you for sharing that. I am deeply moved, and I always trust in my faith that those are the things that are going to happen. But for it to come full circle and you to share that with me, it's like proof. Like, I knew it. I think
I met you probably about 20 minutes to an hour before I met Jamie. And then Jamie had also said something. She was talking to me about her work that she was doing. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And she had given me her card and I had exchanged information with her. And then like we have connected for over other things, like one of my friend's stories that kind of related to her work. Yeah. So I was just like, I guess these A1 conferences are really magnificent and something special.
They are.
Absolutely.
They really are. I remember meeting you because I was like one of the last posters in the row. And so people came to me exhausted because my friends in front of me had hyped up so much. And so they got to me. But I remember meeting you, Kimber, and I was like, oh, she's something special. And I remember we connected not that long afterwards. I think, one of us emailed the other and always wanted to have the opportunity to work for you. And I think that, these conventions and these opportunities, I went up to, like Cheniqua mentioned, the New York A1 work that they are doing, which is to start a New York City chapter. And living in New Jersey, I'm not that far away. So I was like, I'm going to go up and just, be there and like be supportive and, be in that space. And it was so cool to be able to go up there and just see how, they were, working with, our New York colleagues. But these opportunities to interact and to network really is just so like cup filling. And I'm not sure that people, unless you like partake in it, I think you don't necessarily know like how much energy you're going to come back with, whether it's just a short like mixer type of event or a convention. I always come back. Or a committee or anything. Just the opportunity to connect with other nurses and to connect with people is just so like re-energizing and just filling of all of our cups.
And I feel like I am such a testament of that. Cheniqua knows I am, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert and I'm like, all right, connecting with people, this is too much. I don't know how to do this. And, when I first started Emerging Leaders in Denver, I was like, all right, Cheniqua loves people. She is a connector. Like she said, we're opposites. So I'm going to just, I'm going to stick with my sister here. And it was so uncomfortable, but I felt the power of it, the power of the connection. I felt so uplifted, even though I was overwhelmed at the same time. Had to process. And as you mentioned, Kimber, that self-awareness is so important because you have to know what you need. And it could look so different from someone else. So you have to trust that and respect yourself and make that space for yourself. And then the next year in New Orleans, I'm just like, with networking. Let's go. I'm ready. It has like filled my cup, and I'm just standing so proud and tall in my power and just connecting and meeting people like, hey, I deserve to be in this room, in this table. And Jamie has said, I'm creating space for myself. I'm, making that table bigger for myself. I'm pulling a chair into that space because I know that I'm deserving. So thank you, team, for continuing to remind me of who I am and standing my power.
And I also
it's not easy.
Oh, sorry. I also wanted to point out that this last conference in New Orleans, I actually went by myself, and I can't tell you how many times I thought about like not going, because it was like a national conference in New Orleans. I have to fly to it. I have to be by myself. And I mean, I had an incredible time, met so many people, like just seeing y'all's work in the like poster area, listening to some of the talks. It really was so cup filling and just reaffirming that like the hard work that we're doing, everything that we're going through, like in our daily interactions and the barriers that we're coming up against, it really is so worth it, because then you find so many other people that are pretty much working towards a similar or the same goal in different capacities. So you really get to just see like, I mean, it's just a variety of different ways that people are really working and putting in the work to have better outcomes for our patient population, which is incredible.
Yeah. And I feel like you learn that you're not doing this work alone, and that you don't have to do everything. You don't have to be everything to everybody, that you can really lean into whatever your own gift is.
Yeah.
And by meeting all of these other people, like I learned, if I talk about what I believe in, it attracts other people who believe in the same things that I believe in. And when we surround ourselves with people who have similar beliefs, it just makes it makes your cause so powerful.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's one of the things that I've learned in these spaces. But I was going to go back just real fast to Denver. And, you all have mentioned imposter syndrome. And I joke all the time about, I have the worst imposter syndrome. Anytime I get up to speak, like 3 minutes ahead of time, I'm like, what am I doing here? I have nothing of value to contribute to whatever I'm going to be saying up on stage. What were they thinking in inviting me? I have the worst imposter syndrome. And I actually left the room in the very beginning of the Emerging Leader Program and went to the bathroom, because I was like hyperventilating, because I was like, what am I doing here? Everybody had gone around the room, and I listened to Tenesia speak, and I listened to Cheniqua speak. And I was like, these people are clearly excellent, and they picked the wrong person in me, because I don't know what I'm doing here. And I had to like kind of just take some breaths and recenter myself. And I think that, after, it's taken a long time, but I think that being in these spaces with other people who value, the things that we are doing, kind of chips away at that imposter syndrome. And you start to see that you have value and that you are offering things that people, want to know about. And even if you're not, your inherent value doesn't lie on, your inherent value is not in what you offer other people. It's just in who you are.
It's so funny.
Absolutely.
All the most incredible people that I know have imposter syndrome. So I'm like, why? You guys are all so amazing. And I just spoke with a friend that's in a doctorate program, and she was telling me how she has imposter syndrome. I'm like, all of these people that say this, they are literally the most incredible, intelligent, hardworking people. So, I definitely wish that you guys could see yourselves all the time the way that I see you guys through my eyes, because I mean, truly the work that you have done, the people that you are, like, just truly incredible.
Thank you. And I think even the key with imposter syndrome, yes, we all feel it, but I have this saying, feelings aren't facts. Mm-hmm. And so when those thoughts start to come into my head, and they still come all the time, even today, I'm like, I don't want to take a walk, but I need to take a walk. It's like this internal dialogue. It's really crazy. But we feel the fear and we do it anyway. And that's where that being brave and that and courageous really does make the difference, right? I'm going to freak out every time. People have asked me, I've been actually a panelist this year, which is really exciting, on different, for different organizations for Black Maternal Health Week. And I'm like, what do you want me to talk about? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to talk about, right? Like, are you sure you want me? And half the time, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, you don't need me. You need Tanisha. She's your girl. Jamie, let's get Jamie on there. This is her jam, right? But then I'm reminded, and this is where that spiritual connection comes. Like, God's like, nope, I chose you. And I'm like, what, me? Yes, you. Okay, here we go. And then you just do it, right? And as we continue to practice that, stepping out into that brave, courageous space with your tribe behind you. And I think that's the other piece, is that they are my source of courage. I can look back in the corner. If I'm in a boxing ring, I can look back. I know who's in my corner. And then now I think for me, it's actually the opposite happening. It's like, I'm actually cool. Like, my friends say I'm cool. My friends say I know what I'm, okay. And now I'm starting to get more confident. And, it's awesome because we really inspire each other to be like, yeah, you really are it. And I know they're not just telling me things I want to hear, because when I mess up or I start to be down on myself, they are there to pick me up and they're there to help course correct me. So they're not just telling me the things I want to hear. They're telling me, they're speaking to me, truth to me in love also. So I think it's just a lot of that.
It is. I mean, Cheniqua, you've definitely dragged me sometimes to many things and pushed me. So I think my weight's not as heavy now because I'm like willingly going. So
And for the record, Tanisha, I just need to say this like live. When we did get to Denver, okay, for emerging leaders, firstly, we just applied because somebody told us to. We didn't know we were both going to get in. That was divine fate, okay? I just want to make that clear. They had no idea we were best friends. They didn't know, and we didn't tell them. It was just like, all right, well, if Tanisha gets in, she'll give me all the tea. And if I get in, I'll give her all the tea. And I think that's the beauty of our friendship and our relationship as coworkers, as friends. We don't compete with each other at all. And it would have been awkward. I'm not going to lie. Probably would have been a little bit awkward if one got in and not the other. There's that. But it wouldn't have changed. I don't believe we allow that to change our dynamic, which is really important for that. But back to my point. Tanisha, when we got to Denver, okay, and you were like, yeah, and in my mind, I was like, yeah, it's me and Tanisha, but, we got to be a little bit inclusive because these are new people and we can't, I don't know. But we got there and I was really expecting like to sit next to her and for her to be my person too, because I was nervous. I didn't see you the whole time. Okay. You wouldn't make friends. You were making friends the entire time. I was alone. Okay. I was like, well, I guess she's talking to Jamie. I guess I'll go talk to some of the other EL. Okay. Bye, friend. So don't downplay yourself. This is literally how I call her out, y'all. Don't downplay yourself in that. You were not with me that entire time until I had the concussion, and then you were with me. That's the point.
I think I'm going to have to hear more about this concussion off air here.
You didn't hear about it then. I'm sure there were several people that did. But I just want to say that Tanisha has just flourished in her way, and we don't stifle each other. We don't expect each other to be the same way. And so I just had to give her props.
It sounds like y'all really help each other like carry that load that you're carrying. I guess many hands make light work, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, I've heard so much in this episode. And my last question was about a career life hack. I don't feel like I need to ask the question. You all have dropped so many nuggets that if somebody listens to the episode and doesn't know what to do next, they just need to re-listen. I mean, you've heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. But I think what you all have shared in this episode is it takes a village to be a nurse. That's what I've heard you all say. Yes. You're talking about your friendship and you're talking about your tribe and you're talking about pouring into other people and then also receiving that from other people and taking good care of yourself, but learning how to do that doesn't just come because you graduated from nursing school, right? And I hear you talking about working your way through the challenges so that you learn how to center your joy. So I feel like you all have given us multiple life hacks in this episode that we don't even need to ask the question, but I will just open the floor. If there's anything that you want to add, please do.
I mean, I think you said it, Bria. Like, it's about finding your tribe, but I want to emphasize that it's becoming a nurse leader. As Cheniqua mentioned, it's like when you try to climb that ladder, when people are literally pulling at your feet because they don't want you to get up there. You know, with the structural racism, it's not just the people, there's a system in place to hold you down. Yeah. So it's going to get harder and harder the higher you try to climb, but you have to strengthen that tribe in order to get ahead. I mean, it has been struggle, internal, external, like they created so you're questioning yourself, like, that is a really good system in place to hold me down. Okay, so I need to create a system even better than that, that's gonna allow me to push further, and having that tribe of such like-minded people. And thank you so much, A1, for having this space, focusing on health equity to ensure that I have the right people surrounding me so I can learn what psychological safety is and see what other people are doing and have those people to uplift. Like, I am so impressed by the power of us women, of us leaders. I mean, I'll stop there because I can go on and on.
No, I want to
have an idea.
that.
Let's tear down that system and build a better one. How about that?
Love it.
Fire from the system.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, to Tenesia's point, I truly do want to thank Avon and the leaders of color before us, because they put in sweat equity, you know, and I don't even think that deeply covers the amount of investment, emotional, mental investment that these leaders, Lachey Haynes and Lauren Nunley, the Rose Hortons, right? Clifton is another super strong leader. And I just want to say thank you to them, because without them pushing the boundaries and addressing and really being intentional about addressing racism and structural racism, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. I would still be doing something because it's not in my nature to give up, but I wouldn't be here. And so I am so proud of, and the Emerging Leaders Program, and how intentional Karen Crowley and Miriam Young were about this program, Jonathan Webb supporting it, and Shakira Henderson, all of the people that really protect this program, because it speaks to their intentionality about diversity and having hard conversations. And I know A1 was not always like that. I've come at a time where I am reaping the benefits of their work. And now I feel like the baton is passing to me to continue that work. So all that to say, thank you. I think a life hack, 2 things. 1, you can do everything. You just cannot do it all at the same time. As an Aries, I really had to sit with that for a while, because I am magical and I am a unicorn as an Aries, and I can do all the things. But then I had to realize I really can't do all the things at the same time. So protecting your time, being intentional about that, being intentional about when you sit down to create your calendar, protect you first. Where do you belong on the calendar first? For your job, before your children, before your husband, for whatever other responsibilities. Where my vacation is in July. I know that. No one's making me do anything in July, right? So being intentional, planning ahead, it also takes off stress when you're at these higher levels. And then I think the game changer for me too was having a mentor and a coach, seeking them out. That was huge. Whether it's a life coach, whether it's a professional coach or nurse coach, anybody, for whatever it is you want to get better at. Seeking out mentorship, seeking out coaching, and asking for that help. And if you don't see it where it looks like we are here. We are very, very reachable. I know we're on a lot of platforms and we're doing a lot of things, but I deeply believe in mentorship. I love mentoring. So you could always feel free to reach out. And if I'm not the mentor for you, we'll find one. We know people, and it's okay. So just kind of reaching out and continuing to seek that help. Those are my two. If I had to give a life hack, those are the two I would give.
I love that after all this, you just made yourself available.
There's somebody out there, and I'm with it. I mean, you're not alone. And I think my younger self wanted that. I was always seeking that, and so it takes a little vulnerability to ask for help. But yes, I am available. I will make time for the things that are important to me.
Trust me, somebody's listening. They're going to take you up on that offer because I know they certainly need it.
I love that you're embodying the whole like lift as you climb kind of motto. Like, bring up the next person behind you to kind of continue that journey.
Absolutely. Like we need those people that can mentor us and pull us up as once we get up there. And that's why I keep striving to get to the top. So I know I can pull my sisters behind me up there because we need that diversity. We need that support system up there. As you mentioned, changing the system, breaking it down and building it up with people that look like us and like-minded people that are going to support us.
And our allies, Jamie, we're not forgetting about you.
Oh, Jamie Jamie is such a powerhouse. And I just have to shout out Jamie. The number of times she's almost made me cry, and it's hard to make me cry, but she is such a powerhouse, such an ally, and I could not be where I am today without her. So you truly have to acknowledge, and I may not reach out to Jamie every second, but she knows I'm there and I am one of her biggest fans, and like she's here and I know she's here and she has my back and she's lifting me up.
And to your point about allies, Kimber, I think, and I'll say this really quickly, Jamie, we need allies. Let's be clear. We need each other, but allies are so important. And when you can walk into a room with, best friends or really close sister friends that one is Black and one is white, and you can address that entire room because your values, your core values, your purpose and your mission are aligned, that is one of the most powerful moments you could have because you are addressing that entire room, right? No matter what color if they're all Black, if they're all white, it doesn't matter, right? So that diversity is so important in finding allies. And I'll say this, Jamie, you have been phenomenal in acknowledging and holding space for us. You take your platform and you say, hey, here you go. And you allow us to speak our stories. And that, for me, I want to tell you in this public space, because I tell you probably every day, thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for advocating for us in the way that you do and with us in the way that you do, because it is very different. People can say they're advocating and they're just talking and thinking they are the voice for us. Mm-hmm. They're not. Yes. We have a voice. Mm-hmm. We can talk. And Jamie is she is very intentional about that and allowing the space to say, hey, you have a voice. Come on, come to the mic. There you go. Talk. And it's beautiful. So thank you for that.
I will say this is my first work with the Jamie. So I haven't known her a super long time, but I've been really impressed from it. And I mean, just incredible. So I'm definitely one of your newest fangirls, Jamie.
I like that.
Y'all are going to make me cry. And I'm always in awe when I'm in a room with all of you or, interacting with each of you individually. So you all are a great gift in my life every day. So thank you. Thank you for those words. And I'm here, I'm here for you guys. I'm here with you. We're all in this together.
I mean, book Jamie for if you need a speaker, you can book her. I'm going to be your plug and your manager. I call her the closer for a reason. Just put her at the end and your conference will be successful.
Oh, that's awesome.
I second that notion.
Thanks. Thanks.
I definitely feel like this was a conversation that it just felt like it was among sisters. And I appreciate how deep and honest, transparent, and insightful you all have been, because I know that people who are listening are going to take to heart everything that you said, and they're going to move and they're going to act on it. And so you've given us some guidance on how each of us can take up the mantle of improving Black maternal health. So thank you so much, Cheniqua and Tenesia, for joining me and Jamie and Kimber tonight, and for detailing with your heart the experiences that you've both had that have led you to act and to lead in the nursing space. So we're going to conclude the episode. I just want to say, for everyone who wants to rewatch the video and to listen again, also to read your full bios and see all of the work that you're doing, you can go to a1.org/podcast. We'll also have a lot of the different resources. We especially will have the link to the Emerging Leaders Program. And so we want to also thank you all for staying with us, listening to this episode. And we'd be honored if you would share it with a colleague or with a friend, someone you know that needs to hear this conversation. And in addition, we want to express our gratitude for the invaluable support of our sponsors. And then lastly, we have more episodes. They're going to be coming out in May. If you want to hear them, be sure to subscribe. We are on iTunes, we're on Spotify, and we're on SoundCloud. So thank you again so much for your time. We ask that you be well and that you stay safe.